What's this? No, I'm not getting into it. Yeah, Joe. Who wants to bring us in here?
I'll bring us in. Joe, do
Okay.
you want to do it?
I'll do it.
All right.
Are we sure?
Yeah,
I'm just giving you
if
shit,
you don't
dude.
like it, you don't like how I bring us in, you cut it, and then someone else do it.
No.
Just to give you an idea, Jeff, on how much we fuck with Joe and we fuck with each other. Joe asked how we were going to do the giveaway, and I said, I don't know. We'll probably just mail it out to the person. He thought I was being serious.
And then when I said, no, Jeff will mail, he's like, yeah, we'll do that. We'll have him do it.
Fuck.
All right, ready? So I'll bring us in?
Yeah.
All right, TIW Mafia. Here we are again on a Tuesday night. Scratch that. Let's start again because we're recording. All right, TIW.
Hold on. Just fucking.
Right.
What I need right here. This
JP,
is what I
bring us
need.
in.
This is what I need. I just need like 5 seconds of pause because this is where I need to fucking go. When I get this and I will break it down to audio, I'm gonna look for that 5 seconds.
Josh, just go with me on this.
Okay.
What's up, TIW Mafia? JP here, and it's a Tuesday on. Oh, fuck it. Josh, bring us in.
No, god damn it. I hate you guys.
I know. Want me to do it again?
Yes, just
Joe-
five
And
seconds.
Joe,
Do it real.
don't say cunt and Deathwish. Do not say cunt and Deathwish today in the same sentence.
We'll have to bring that up and explain it. All right, here we go.
5
All
seconds
right,
of pause,
TIW.
please. No, just fuck it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you and love you both.
Ready?
Yes.
All right, TIW Mafia. This is Big Joe. I'm here with JP and the Yeti, and we have a special guest with us. We have the one and only Incredible Jeff from Deathwish Coffee.
Hi, guys.
Joe.
Hi. I'm so happy to frickin' be on your show because I'm afraid of all of you.
You must have seen us in person. I know you've seen me. I haven't seen you in about a year now, right?
Yeah, a little over a year.
And
So
you're
no-
only about an hour and a half away.
Yeah, you got to come visit.
So, how's the coffee business?
Coffee business is great. I never thought I would work for a coffee company, but it is probably the craziest industry out there right now. It really is.
Is it like the microbrew industry? Is it? Because I'm up here in Montana, and these guys give me shit about. They get the wrestling all the time, but I'm like in the haven of micro beer because I can go anywhere any time and get like 25 different beers on tap. Is coffee like that?
It's getting that way. Like, I mean, there's what they call waves of coffee. Your first wave, your second wave, your third wave. Deathwish is considered a third wave coffee because it is that upstart. We're not Folgers. We're not Starbucks. We're that third generation. And that third generation has really opened the doors for a lot of different companies and a lot of different blends of coffee that you're seeing out there today. If you're not just buying Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or Folgers or any of that garbage, and it really can be interesting when you meet a lot of these different companies because there are a lot of parallels to the microbrew kind of culture.
Now, being Deathwish Coffee, when you see somebody with a Dunkin' Donuts cup, do you look at them and go, geez, didn't you want some caffeine?
Well, I'll say it like this. I understand that caffeine is probably the best legal drug on the market. And I don't ever judge. I'm not personally. If we're talking Dunkin' Donuts, I'm not a Dunkin' Donuts fan because they put so much. You can ask for just black Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and they'll still put cream and sugar in it because that's their deal. But I understand that if you're out on the road or you're traveling or whatever, and you need your caffeine fix, if there's a Dunkin' there or a Starbucks over here or wherever, you're gonna stop and get it. Like there's no hate. It's just like you gotta get that fix.
It's definitely the convenience of it.
Yeah.
With those stores. Now, you do the podcast for Deathwish, correct?
I do. I run Fuel by Deathcast, which started out about 2.5 years ago now, from the idea of like when Mike Brown, the owner of Deathwish Coffee, started Deathwish Coffee. He always wanted to not only create good cup of coffee, a strong cup of coffee. But he wanted to create a lifestyle brand. He wanted to create this ideal where he's not only fueling you with caffeine, but his company is fueling your passion. And that's kind of where the podcast was born. Fueled by Deathcast is all about fueling people's passion. The elevator pitch, the real simple thing is that we are all fueled by death. We want to leave this world a little different before we inevitably leave it for good. So every single week on Thursday, Fueled by Deathcast comes out with a brand new special guest, and I get to talk to them about what they do, why they do it, and what fuels their passion to do it. And that is guests that from all walks of life, musicians, authors, athletes, wrestlers, astronauts, everything in between.
Well, as he said, musicians. Now you have a special coffee was done in part by a pretty famous musician.
One of the best guitarists to ever live, Zakk Wylde. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I just ordered some of that today.
So when the company first got its start and started to make some traction, this is the romantic rock and roll story, I'll tell you guys. So Zakk Wylde is really good friends with Kerry King, the guitarist of Slayer.
Yeah.
And Kerry was coming out with his own brand of coffee. And a lot of these old rockers, like that's their deal, is like they've been there, done that with the drugs and the alcohol. And now, they still want to keep rocking, but that part of their life's gone. So a lot of these old rockers are all about the caffeine and all about the coffee. So when Kerry was starting to develop his coffee line, Zakk was like, well, fuck that. I want my own damn coffee. And him and his buddy Blasko, who's actually the bassist in Zack Sabbath, also Blasko played for Rough Zombie and a bunch of other bands. They started vetting companies and looking for like what would be a good fit. And this was right at the start of Deathwish Coffee. And they contacted Mike Brown, the owner, and was like, hey, Zack's looking to make a coffee. Would you be interested? And of course, like a budding small business with like barely any customer base, and one of Ozzy Osbourne's guitarists contacts you, of course you say yes. So our other blend is Valhalla Java Odin Force blend, and it is made in part with Zakk Wylde, where Deathwish Coffee is a specific blend of 2 different single source origin beans. Valhalla Java is 5 different beans from around the world.
Now, is it true that there's a drop of Zack's blood in every cup?
Every 50 cups. If we were to do it, if we were to do it every cup, Zakk would be dead by now. So like it's a drop of blood every 50 cups. But the greatest thing is that Zakk really enjoys the brew. He had a hand in vetting it when we came up with the recipe. And to this day, if you follow Zakk Wylde on social media, you can see him, drinking the coffee, talking about the coffee. And it is such a huge part of his life. And in fact, going back to my podcast, if any of your listeners want to check out Fueled by Deathcast, I've had Zakk on the show twice. And the second time was our 100th episode. And I flew out to LA and recorded it in his recording studio, the Black Vatican. And we talked all about how the Valhalla Java has basically fueled the last couple Black Label records.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's really
what's
cool.
funny? This is crazy. Like, this is how small of a world it is. Like, so he was just here in Billings last night, right?
With Black Label, right?
Yeah. So
yeah.
He just played here last night, and I had to make a decision in my life that was very conflicting. Like, there was Zakk Wylde, there's Hellyeah and Nonpoint.
Oh, shit.
And there's also Slayer's final tour here in Billings.
Oh.
Yep.
So
I'm like, Slayer. I'm sorry.
I'm like, okay, I gotta, because it's like $300 VIP, So this is meet and greet. This is all that shit, right? So I'm like, I gotta pass. I gotta take a pass for Slayer for the last one. It's funny. It's a small world. That's really cool.
Can I just say that I love that I saw Slayer's last show of that tour like 2 months ago, and it's still going.
Yeah, right.
And I get it. I'm fucking gonna go, and I'm saving up that money, like balls out. I mean, I'm almost there, so it's cool. That's awesome. That's gonna be fun.
Now,
That's awesome.
You a metal guy?
Me? Yeah, I'm a super metal guy. And I'll actually tell you that in a second. I just wanted to tell you that all three of those options that you were just talking about, they're all fueled by Deathwish. We fuel, obviously, Zakk and all of his tours. Hellyeah is a huge supporter of Deathwish Coffee, and I send them coffee all the time. And this whole last tour of Slayer, even though Carrie's got his own coffee, some of them like Deathwish too. So we throw them in Deathwish as well.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
But I love metal. I've always been a metal fan. In fact, I've been in metal bands for a while, and I always get this question, oh, you were in metal bands, so what did you play? It's never what you think. I was an electric violinist, and I still am.
Didn't you also play the skin flute?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Never on stage, though. That's backstage.
Here's the thing. So, like, when we say metal, is like when you say metal to average people, right?
Yeah.
They go, oh, Metallica. No.
Right.
What you're like, there's symphonic, there's melodic,
Totally.
there's black, there's death, there's everything. I mean,
Totally.
so when you say that, and when you say electric violin, I'm like, I'm on edge, like I'm waiting.
Yeah. So, like, basically, like, here's the short story is, like, when I was really young, my cousin introduced me to Metallica and Iron Maiden. And, like, from that point on, everything had changed, and I went down, every single rabbit hole. Like, the first cassette I ever bought was And Justice for All. And I've always been a fan of metal, but like you said, there's so many different varieties of it. Symphonic metal, obviously, I'm a big Tool fan, love the new record. And even the other side of it, death metal, I'm a huge death metal fan. Cannibal Corpse is one of the greatest bands to ever come out of anywhere, and they still are putting out amazing records. And everything in between, power metal, speed metal, all of it. It's just great. My favorite band ever in any genre forever is Pantera, and my hero is Dimebag Darrell.
Yeah. That was rough, man.
That's rough.
And I think that's why I passed on seeing Zakk, is so I could go see Hellyeah.
Hellyeah.
For that specific reason, and also for the other loss. I mean, that's the biggest reason. I mean, that album is, Sangre por Sangre has been out for what, like a year now, maybe more.
Almost a year and a half, I think.
And they still just, that whole album is another one that you can just literally play from beginning to end. And when you say Pantera, like, that is what I see in Hellyeah. And dude, I respect 100%. No pun intended.
So, does Zakk Wylde, is that how he plays the guitar with his mouth? Does he have to, like, chug a cup of Deathwish first?
Well, he's always drinking Bahala, first of all, and he can play the guitar behind his head. He can play the guitar behind his back. That dude, and talking to him again, going back to having him on the 100th episode of Fueled by Deathcast. One of the coolest things that he was talking about is I asked him, what is it like to be him? Like, you are not only Ozzie's guitarist, he's been Ozzie's guitarist since 1987, but to be someone who, is lauded as one of the best guitarists out there. And he's like, it's a chore, it's a chore he loves, but it's something that, like, he puts the work in every single day. If you follow him on social media, half of his social media is just him learning to play somebody else's solo, or just doing scales, or just videotaping him just noodling, just because he's doing hours every single day playing the guitar.
I feel like probably up until a couple of years ago, he didn't even realize he was him, though. Like, he was doing these huge things, but didn't realize, you know what I mean? To him, it was just life. Yeah,
and it is just life. When he was, like, he tells the story that, he was a Sabbath fan in high school, right? He was in bands in high school, like everybody has shitty bands in high school or whatever. And he gets out of high school and auditions for Ozzie and gets it. He starts playing for Ozzie when he's 19. It never was like, oh, I'm Zakk Wylde and now I'm at the pinnacle. He started at the pinnacle. He got into that driver's seat right there because of his talent, and He never looked back. Yeah. And it's because of the work that he put in. It's incredible. But you're right. It's not like he ever noticed it. It was always just, well, this is normal. This is who I am.
Now, how did you get into podcasting? What came first, Deathwish or Fueled by?
Well, Fueled by Deathcast was born out of Deathwish with the whole fuel your passion and talking to different people and that kind of stuff. But I got into podcasting before Deathwish. So basically, I was in bands forever. And I was in this band that was like a progressive metal band. And we were going for it. And, we had record labels looking at us. We were going on tour. And things had, not to get into it, but things happened. The band broke up, because of reasons. And that happened.
Life happens, exactly.
So I took a turn in my life, and I started to. I was in a dark place. I was like, what am I gonna do? I put so much energy into this band. I was always a cook. I was cooking in restaurants, and I was cooking for a college forever. And so that was my day job. But I was like, what am I gonna do, to fuel my passion and stuff like that? And then I just decided, I was like, I'm gonna start saying yes to any opportunity that hits. And I got the opportunity to start writing for an online music magazine called New York State Music. And it just is a guest writer. And then I became an actual writer for it. I covered the Monster Tour. I think this was been 2015, 2014. It was when Korn and Avenged Sevenfold were on it. And I covered all those bands, interviewed all those bands and everything. And then that put me into writing for other different websites, kind of as a freelancer thing. And one thing that I've always been a fan of is comic books. In fact, if you're looking at this, you can see behind me, I have long boxes of comic books and comics on the wall and all that stuff. I've always loved that. And I fell in with a geek website called Fanboys Inc. And I was reviewing comic books and reviewing movies and that kind of stuff on the site and doing a bunch of blog stuff. And they also had a podcast network. And while I was reviewing and writing for that site, one of the hosts actually quit. And the guy who ran the whole site was like, hey, would you like to fill in as a podcast host? And I was like, I don't know what the fuck a podcast is. Sure. I'll do that. And I started doing that. And I did that for the better part of a year. And that's kind of when I started to fall in with Deathwish, because when Deathwish started to get a lot of traction, especially right around the time of the Super Bowl commercial and before that, a couple of my best friends in the world were working for Deathwish Coffee. So I knew the company, I knew what they were doing, and they wanted to break into the comic book world organically. Mike's great. He's such an amazing owner and CEO. He doesn't ever want to show up somewhere and be, for lack of a better term, a poser. He wants to, really if Deathwish is going to be a part of something, whether it's music or space or comic books or whatever, we want to be there because we're supposed to be there. Or wrestling. And so with comic books, they started to talk to me and they were like, how can we kind of break into this business? And so I started consulting to Deathwish as I was working for this geek site of how they could break into the business. And I brought them down to New York Comic Con in 2015 and let them meet a bunch of different artists and creators and writers and stuff like that of comics. And that actually turned into Deathwish Coffee being the official coffee of New York Comic Con in 2016. And then Deathwish made their own comic book with a couple of the creators that I put them in contact with. And all of that, along with podcasting, kind of brought me into the fold.
Hey,
So
let's take a break real quick, because we got Joe's bills to pay, because he's where he's at. I got my bills to pay.
Yeah, gotta get that.
Where I'm at, and JP's
get that money.
We all got to get that money. So let's take a break.
All right, TIW Mafia, we're back with the incredible Jeff. Before we get back into our discussion of everything he's just done and everybody he's met over the years, I have a trivia question, and Jeff has been gracious enough to offer us a prize pack to give away.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty badass. Jeff, what did you say it was about $100 value?
Yeah, it's about $100 value. You're going to get a pound of Deathwish coffee. You're going to get a travel mug, a clean canteen Deathwish travel mug.
Those
You're going
are
to get,
awesome. I use it every day.
yep, you're going to get a hand-thrown Deneen Pottery Deathwish mug, the 2019 version of that. And you're also going to get a 4-pack of our brand new canned cold brew. So, I mean, you're going to be caffeinated either for a week or for an hour, and if you drink it all in an hour, I'm not going to pay your medical bills. That's all I'm saying.
Read the disclaimer on the can first.
Yeah. Stickers. I'll throw in some all sorts of cool stuff in there. All right. So this is a two-part question, and one more time, all you got to do is tweet at Fueled by Deathcast and at, what is it? The Irish Boys?
3 Irish Boys.
3 Irish Boys at 3 Irish Boys. Hashtag
TIW Trivia.
TIW Trivia.
TIW Trivia. So many consonants. So 2-part question. You got to answer both of them correctly. What year did Deathwish Coffee get its start? And where is the farthest place that Deathwish Coffee has been brewed?
And they don't have to look too far to find those answers.
No, I mean, I'm sure Deathwish Coffee's on the internet somewhere.
Deathwish Coffee's on the internet everywhere.
It really, like, you guys have a really good presence on the net.
Thank you.
And I think that's important for, you guys aren't really a new company anymore. But for a smaller company, like you said, it's not Folgers. Right. I think that's really important because you guys get a lot of word of mouth. People talk about it because of the caffeine. And
totally.
how much more caffeinated is it than a regular cup? Is that actually measured?
It is. You can go to sites like caffeineinformer.com. They're constantly doing tests on different coffee companies and stuff like that. We don't ever really deal in numbers because when you're comparing, let me put it this way. There's a lot of companies out there that add caffeine to their brew. Okay. And that's, in my idea, bullshit. What we do is not adding any caffeine. It's about how we brew the coffee, the temperature we brew the coffee, and the beans that we use. And the numbers really don't matter. What it is it's how it tastes and how it makes you feel. And consistently, a cup of our coffee, if you were to drink a normal cup of Deathwish coffee, you're going to get double the amount of caffeine that you'd get in a normal cup of coffee. Insert name here.
I can vouch for that because I had my first cup this morning and I was highly caffeinated.
Excellent.
How did you like it, Josh?
I didn't get those typical caffeine jitters that you'd think you would get, so it was a nice, smooth. And this is weird because I'm like Jeff. It's like caffeine is one of the coolest drugs in the world for me because it's legal.
Yep.
And once you figure out what that groove is and your caffeine, you can maintain. Like you don't want the people that OD on this shit and get. That's why these drinks get a bad rap is because people. It's all in moderation, man. So no, it was a good, nice, perfect caffeine high that wasn't all jittery, sweaty. There was no I didn't get the shits, so that's perfect,
Yeah.
No. You say it's the only
that's over caffeinated. That's a caffeine guy right there. He'll tell you my gut didn't all bubbly. I didn't, it's a perfect brew, man, in a K cup too. So it was perfect for me.
Yeah.
I like that you have the cold brew now. I'm an iced coffee in Boston, it's pretty normal to be an iced coffee drinker year round, even though we'll have 10 feet of snow. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the cold brew.
I'm actually really new to the cold brew, and I'm gonna really look forward. I mean, living in Montana, I mean, I got the K cups for sure. I think at a lot of the local places here, I think they have the espresso or the beans, so that's a cool thing too. So.
He's got the K cups of coffee, but he's got his own D cups.
We're working on getting the cold brew in as many places as possible. Right now, it's predominantly online, either deathwishcoffee.com or on Amazon. If you Amazon Prime, you get it in 2 days. And the great thing about the cold brew is it's an 8-ounce can, so it's 8 ounces of fluid, but you're getting 300 milligrams of caffeine.
So it's like those little tomato juice cans.
Yeah, but better. because
yes.
Yeah.
Not like they're about the size of the cans. That's perfect.
Yeah, and again, to throw it back to your show, talking about wrestling and stuff like that, they talk about how caffeine is a great pre-workout. Coffee is a great pre-workout, and you're looking for anywhere between 150 to 200 milligrams for a pre-workout, and that can is 300 milligrams. So you do about 2/3 of that can, then you work out, and then you got another third to like keep you going when you're done.
You forgot the sativa in between the coffee.
Oh yeah, no, sativa for sure. Yeah, no, sativa during workout, before workout, after workout. Yeah, I got you. I'm on that.
When you said you mentioned the show and the caffeine and the workout, how different would '90s wrestling have been if Stone Cold went out there and was pounding cans of Deathwish instead of cans of beer?
Right. I never understood that. Like I understood it from like the machismo. Like I'm going to come out there and crush a can of beer and throw beer to the audience and like be that. But there were some matches where, especially early on when he realized that, that was like a crowd pleaser, that it was like 9 beers. And it's like, yo, dude, like you're going to hurt yourself.
But out of the 9 beers, the amount that he spilled to the amount that he drank.
Right, totally.
He probably drank it. He probably
beer.
This came out and he had beers with the Viking Raiders, who were a new tag team. One of them is from Boston. His first beer ever was in the middle of the ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin last week.
Oh, damn.
He didn't drink a drop of it. If you watch it, he didn't drink a drop.
And I think Seth Rollins drank every drop of that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't drank in 26
Jeff,
years.
What?
I haven't drank in over 26 years. If I'm in the middle of the ring and Stone Cold hands me a beer, I'm chugging that motherfucker.
What do you do?
Hey, I've said the same thing, like I haven't smoked cigarettes in years, but like say, Dave Grohl was to walk up to me and be like, hey man, you want to smoke a cigarette? I'd be like, sure. It's the same thing. I get it, like in that situation, Stone Cold throws you a beer, and not only does Stone Cold throw you a beer, but it's Monday Night fucking Raw, and you're on television. You gotta, you gotta
win MSG.
You gotta chug that shit. I get it.
He's not out there smashing cans of O'Doul's either.
Right, exactly.
No,
it's probably like Coors or Pabst or something. But
he's actually got his own.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that. He's got his own guy. Because of course he's got
his. Right, but that's like coffee.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure those heavy metal, all the metal bands need coffee because they're not the Slayer.
Yeah,
they're not 30. They're not 20 years old. They're not 30 years old anymore.
Yeah,
and they're playing until 11 o'clock at night in a Slayer concert. I've seen Slayer a couple times. They do nothing but play. They don't stop up there. There's no talking. I'm sure they need some caffeine.
They definitely do. I'll tell you a story, frickin'. I just found this out a couple months ago, and it's so awesome. So Ozzie's been, he's been battling, but he's been sober for the last handful of years, right?
Yeah.
Throughout his career, he's always battled addiction. He's always battled that kind of stuff. And when he goes sober, the multiple times that he's done that, it's always to throw it back to wrestling, Stone Cold. It's always been that, it's like it's all or nothing with him. And only recently has Ozzie started to get back into allowing himself some vices. And one of those is caffeine. I'll give you 3 guesses as to what coffee he drinks.
Maxwell House?
You're fucking wrong.
Good thing it wasn't the trivia question.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's not Folgers in his cup.
No, it's not. But I mean, that's really rad that he's even gotten to the point. He's over 70 now. And, it's like, it's to the point where it's like, he still wants to get out there. I mean, he's been dealing with his health issues this year, and it's been a rough year for him. But he's going to get back out on tour. And when he does, caffeine's going to freaking help him.
And Deathwish fits right into his gimmick.
Yeah.
You know,
Very much so.
you can bite the lid off a can of Deathwish Cold Brew.
Well,
I'll tell you another.
I don't think you can call Ozzie a gimmick. I don't think that, especially when you're talking wrestling talk. I think that's incorrect.
Spectacle.
No.
Of it.
If this
What
wasn't
happens-
if this wasn't a wrestling show, I'd have let that slide. But this being a wrestling show, I had to call you on your shit.
What happens
Oh,
as
you
a
wouldn't do
company
shit.
when Ozzie contacts you and says, "Hey, I want some coffee"?
Well, the great thing is he didn't contact us. He contacted Zakk, obviously. So
Okay.
Zack's then like, hey, can we hook the boss up with some coffee? And we're like, yeah, of course
Do
we
you want
can.
do you want me to deliver?
Yeah,
Right?
of course we can. So
We'll
we did.
show up every morning, brew it for him.
Yeah, whatever he wants. Going back to wrestling though, a lot of wrestlers, a lot of the older guys too, like they're all that coffee culture is a big thing. But it was always that before. Not to plug myself again, but Fueled by Deathcast, my show, I've gotten the chance to talk to some amazing people, and I had Ted DiBiase on my show, the $1 Million Man, and an incredible conversation. I was so excited to talk to Ted about his career and everything, but he really did talk about how back in the early days, before Vince McMahon, coalesced everything in the WWF, and it was just all the territories, and you had to wrestle 8 nights a week, to get anywhere. He was just saying that like all the guys, no matter what you partied on, no matter what you did, coffee was life.
Well, those guys, they literally drove town to town.
Town to town.
So they were really in the car that much and driving, and you got to
Yeah.
stay awake somehow.
Well,
Yeah.
coffee was the only thing you can get, even still to this day, pretty much 24/7 everywhere you go.
Right.
I can get heroin across the street.
We get methadone mile up here.
Yeah.
But if you're not across the street, what are you gonna do?
There's probably a coffee store somewhere on the same side of the street you're on.
Yeah.
So, when growing up, did you watch pro wrestling growing up? I mean, what's your first memory of pro wrestling?
My first memory of pro wrestling is getting grounded.
Nice.
Because when I was really, really young, we had a couch and like one of those lazy boys, like recliners. That was my dad's chair in our living room with our television was. And I can't remember, like I was so young, I cannot remember what match was on. I can't remember what was happening. But I was watching wrestling and then decided that all of the guys that were jumping off the ropes and pile driving guys and stuff like that, I was going to do that to my stuffed animals from the couch to the lazy boy. And my mom at the time was like somewhere else in the house, probably doing something like laundry or something, and like came in when I was doing that and was so mad because not only should I have not been doing that, but I broke the lazy boy. So I got grounded for a month and could not watch wrestling. And that's my first memory of like really like, oh my God, wrestling's amazing. Because she grounded me from it and I couldn't watch it. And all I wanted to do was watch wrestling.
Do you remember, this is going to be crazy. I'm going to try. This is going to be fun. Do you remember the time of day?
Yeah, it would have been, I'm going to say before lunch, because I think I was homesick from like kindergarten. I want to say that's how young I was. Like, I think it was like early in the day.
Do you remember? Do you remember what was the season like? Do you remember? Like, was it fall, winter, spring?
Oh, nope. My brain does not remember
I'm
that.
thinking that's TBS in the afternoons, or
This would have been.
NWA.
I'll give you a year. This would have been 86. Let's say.
It could have been AWA, late AWA or early NWA.
Yeah.
I'll send you a video at some point of one of the hosts at this show who you've met before, dressed up as Hulk Hogan if he doesn't kill me for it.
Oh, I was dressed up as the Ultimate Warrior.
You were the Ultimate Warrior, that's right. Right.
Awesome. I'll tell you this. When I was a kid, Hulk Hogan obviously was the best thing that ever happened to the sport because it was just he was larger than life and he was the Hulkamaniacs and all that stuff. I didn't buy into it. My like, honest to God, the two guys that I wanted to see more than anything in the world were Andre the Giant, because he looked different than anybody, and Ric fucking Flair.
Andre was physically larger than life.
Yeah.
He lived with that term.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I like anytime you couldn't even fathom it. But Ric Flair and his woo like that, I would do that at the dinner table, and my parents would get mad at me.
We used to practice Flair chops on a consistent basis in our house.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was 10, 11, and 12-year-old, kids' masculinity, still no muscles whatsoever, just bare-chested and just slapping the shit out of each other, trying to figure out who was tougher.
I was never a Flair guy. I was always a WWF guy. That's why. So I wasn't so much Hogan. I was always Steamboat and Piper.
Oh,
those
Piper.
were I liked Hogan, but Steamboat was my go-to.
Yeah, Steamboat was great. I got to meet Steamboat probably like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. I don't know.
So when's the last time you watched a wrestling show? Like what's the last thing you remember? I mean, I got the first thing. So what's the last? I'm curious to see what the last thing is.
Well, that's a twofold question. Professional wrestling, probably the last time I saw a professional wrestling match. God, it would have been. I want to say it would have been maybe 10 years ago. I can't remember what would have happened, but I have a lot of friends that watch wrestling. It's still to this day, actually, and I know that I was present watching a professional match. But the last time I actually saw wrestling live, I got to see local wrestling in Rochester, New York.
That's awesome.
Which was awesome. And this guy used to be part of ECW and WWE. Colin Delaney, the Extremely Cute. Yeah. Colin also was on my show, Fueled by Deathcast. Great episode with him, because not only did we talk about like breaking into the business, and he went to wrestling school and all that stuff, but he owns this killer shop in Rochester right now. Shout out to Pop Rock. Pop Rock is a cereal bar that serves Deathwish coffee, so you can get cereal and coffee any time of day. They have cartoons on and wrestling on all day long, and it's also a comic book shop and a video game arcade. It's amazing, and it's all Colin and his buddies. But they also do a lot of local wrestling, and the name of the Rochester local escapes me, and I feel bad for forgetting. But we got to go and watch them like ringside, and it was awesome because professional wrestling, Madison Square, you're there, and it's incredible, and the spectacle is amazing. But when you get to see like the rawness of it, Monday Night Raw is raw, but when you are in the shit,
when you're getting the sweat hitting you,
yeah, exactly. When you get the sweat hitting you, that was the last time I saw it. That was last year. That was amazing.
That is actually like the essence of our show. I mean, literally, it's that's what we're infamous for, is always talking or interviewing the people before they become the people.
Yeah.
Well, and with that, what I love about wrestling in general is, Jeff, just how you were just talking. You were talking in a normal tone, and you were going on about things and Ric Flair, and then you talked about how you were at ringside at a live event, and your voice got higher.
Yeah.
You were getting more excited, and you were getting amped up. That's what I want to bottle that.
Yeah.
Put that in some Deathwish coffee. It'll be 3 times the caffeine.
It's the truth. And I tell that to people all the time. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, it's one of those things, like a comic book convention or or something along those lines, where it's like, if you're not a fan of it, it's one of the things in life that you should experience once regardless. Live wrestling is something that you should experience once regardless, because you see it on television, you see the late night pundits talk about it, you see Sports Center talk about it, and it's boiled down to this thing where you're like, oh, I understand that. if you are in a live wrestling event and you're sitting ringside and you feel the sweat and you see the people yelling at each other that you can't hear on television, or, you know, like you just become friends with the guy next to you in the crowd that you've like
Instantly.
never met before, for that moment, you know, like it's a fucking experience that you should do at least once in your life.
It should be a bucket list thing. It should a local professional wrestling event. A professional one, not like not like
backyard wrestling and jumping off of buildings and shit like that. No. There are so many, and that's the greatest thing is that there are so many. If you look for them, there are so many great professional wrestling, you know, joints that are on the local level that aren't your WWEs or ECWs or whatever, you know, like, but they are localized in your area. You can find them.
You know what I love about this conversation? You know what I love about this conversation so far, you guys? Not one person has said independent. Like that hasn't come up one time in this conversation. Like it's local. It's local. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's not independent.
It's independent. But all pro wrestling really is. Even the contract guys are independent contractors. That's the WWE.
It's true.
It's a dumb conversation. It's a really dumb conversation, and I want you guys to know I appreciate it.
Jeff, you had mentioned that everyone should go to like a comic book convention, and that's where I met you, was at a fan convention.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but it was in Nashville a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I want to point out one thing that you did that was pretty badass. At the time, you guys had a different version of your cold brew.
Yes. Yeah. Our first, and I'll just preface that. It was our first iteration. We were proud of it, and then we realized, it's not as good as it can be, so we've got a better one out now.
But you had a stack of cans that was bigger than me. I'm 6'4".
Yep.
And one of the actors, who is a large red-headed man from The Walking Dead.
Oh, I'll say who it is, because I love fucking Michael Cudlitz. Michael Cudlitz is my homeboy. He's amazing.
Edit that piece out and just we're gonna replay. I love fucking Michael Cudlitz over and over and over.
Hey, so I'll give you the other side of it. So the whole time,
is this a work or a shoot?
Did you know that was happening?
No,
this is it. So we're working this event as Deathwish, and we're also podcasting there, which is great. And
Ming Chen on.
Ming Chen, shout out, shared universe right here. Yep. You know, it was an amazing freaking event, and we were giving away free cans of cold brew and free samples of cold brew the entire time, and easily 1,000 cans. I don't even know how many, tons of freaking cans, and we didn't have anything to do with them, so we had this huge booth. So we just started making a pyramid behind us, and at the end of the festival, this is why I love comic book conventions, because you never know what's going to happen, right? Like pop culture conventions, whatever they are, you never know what's going to happen. So at the end of the festival, I was talking to one of the people who was running all the celebrity relations and everything. Shout out to Monique, she's amazing. And I was like, man, you know, like we have all these cans. I think it'd be hilarious to get like video of someone just like tripping me into these cans or pushing me into these cans. And Monique, without even missing a beat, was like, Cudlitz would do it. And I was like, Michael Cudlitz from The Walking Dead? Like, really? And she's like, oh, yeah, let me talk to him. And she comes back and she's like, yeah, he's down. You just got to wait until after the con's over, after he's done with all of his autographs and everything. So we wait till the con's over, and he comes over, and he's this big dude. He's Abraham on The Walking Dead. He's a big dude, and he walks over to me, and he looks at me, and he's like, so what are we doing? And I pointed to all the cans, and I'm like, so, you know, there's this pyramid of cans, and we thought it'd be funny if you, like, picked me up and threw me into these cans. And he's like, he just looked at me with that smirk, that Abraham smirk, and goes, bend over.
Joe, that's going to fit into that loop.
Bend over. I love
bend over. And I'm like, okay. So I bend over. He grabs the scruff of my neck, basically, or right by my shirt.
I remember
and grabs
skin.
And grabbed my belt on my pants and goes, are you ready? And I said, uh-huh. And went, huck, and just hucked me into the cans. And like I said, I have it on video. One of the greatest moments of my life. And I told him afterwards, I was like, if you want to develop a TV show where we go around the world and you just pick me up and throw me into piles of shit, I'm so down for that.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, right? But that's why I love pop culture and comic book conventions just as much as going to live stuff like that, because it's like, not only did I not know that was going to happen, but we had a crowd around us watching that, and those people didn't know that was going to happen. And that's what's cool about pop culture conventions, because you never know what you're going to experience at a giant convention like that.
Now, what brought you to? How did you get Deathwish? Because I'm assuming with your comic book background, you brought Deathwish to the conventions. Did that take a lot of convincing? No,
because they, like I said, they wanted to kind of break into the comic book world. One of my favorite stories to tell is that if you're a true, like, nerd comic book fan, like the guy who wants to collect everything, right? You want to collect the original artwork. And the original artwork from the golden age of comics is usually on giant, easel board pages, right? And they plot out all the panels and all that kind of stuff. And when you look through that, you can go to comic book conventions even today and paw through those. And they're very pricey. They're thousands of dollars worth because it's original artwork and stuff like that. But you'll paw through these. 99% of those pages have a fucking coffee stain on them, because coffee fuels that industry. Because the writers, the artists, the creators, they have late hours. They're working 20 hours a day. They have to meet these deadlines because they're putting out monthly books, and some of them multiple monthly books. So they're constantly doing it. So it just was a great fit. Like, we're this offshoot coffee company who is a coffee company who really wants to fuel people's passion. We want to fuel the passion of all these different things. And one of those is the comic book industry. And so they came to me and they were like, how do we break into this industry? So I brought them down to New York Comic Con in 2015. I showed them the potential of a giant convention like that and put them in front of some of the creators. And that's how we started to create our own comic book. And that's how we started to create this whole relationship with a lot of these creators. To this day, we still, talk to, like, one of the biggest creators for Batman in the last decade.
I'm glad you're going there right now. That was going to be that was going to be my final question. It really was. Like, I want to hear your opinion on Batman.
Okay. I think Batman's went through a lot of stuff, but comic book wise, I just want to say they've definitely done some incredible stuff, and that is 100% on the writer Scott Snyder and the artist Greg Capullo.
Yeah.
And both those guys love Deathwish Coffee and Valhalla Java. In fact, Greg Capullo, if you see him in any press ever, he's not only maybe drinking a cup of coffee, but he's wearing Black Label Society stuff because he is a huge Zakk Wylde supporter.
Now, what's your blend?
Straight black Deathwish. I've always been somebody who's very amped and has a lot of energy, and I don't know what it is, but the more coffee I drink, the calmer I get.
Yep.
So it evens me out.
Do you get twice as calm with Deathwish?
not twice as calm, but it definitely helps. I drink probably at work. I drink probably 4 or 5 cups a day if I'm not drinking a cold brew in between that. And we did superlatives, like high school yearbook superlatives last year throughout the company, and I won most caffeinated because I drink all the coffee.
Yeah. That's funny.
Now, I'm gonna go off I'm trying to put something together. I'm gonna go off on a little. Shut up, Jake.
Oh my God! Please, what are you doing?
I lost my words. I do this every time. I want to have
sex.
Baby.
But, shock do.
I love fucking Michael Cudlitz.
I love fucking Michael Cudlitz. God damn it. It's going to come back to haunt me.
Be fueled by death.
Regardless, I want to say that I love what you guys are doing here, and I just want you guys to know that Deathwish supports you guys 100%, and we'll fuel you guys through your next million listeners. Congratulations on $1 million, by the way. That's fucking awesome.
We're not millionaires, but we've been heard by a millionaires at this point.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
No, you got something for our listeners too that don't win, I believe, right?
Oh, really? We got shit for second place? Fuck, we're playing for first. We're paying losers now.
I'm pretty sure.
We don't roll that way, JP. We're champions here. Listen,
I'm pretty sure everybody gets a promo code.
Yeah, okay, from now on, you guys plug this every single show. This will not expire. For real. Anybody who listens to your show, if you want to go over to deathwishcoffee.com and buy any of our coffee or any of our awesome merchandise, we're always coming out with new merchandise. In fact, we just partnered with Zippo. We came out with a Deathwish Zippo, which was really rad. And, making T-shirts and hats and all sorts of other stuff. Anything you see on there, put it in your cart. And at checkout, you type in Irish Whip, all one word, you get 10% off your purchase.